Hello and welcome to our very first day of the 12 DIYs of Christmas. I'm doing 12 days of different tutorials, 12 DIYs, and this is day one. So today we are doing the Christmas gift bullet journal coloring page tutorial. So if you don't use a bullet journal, a plain piece of white paper will be perfect. Now, typically for my Christmas lists, I use an Excel spreadsheet, which is super boring. And you know what? I set it up and I almost never look at it. First of all, because I don't have it with me in the store. Second of all, because it's not fun. I mean, those are really good reasons to do or not do something, right? Just if it's fun. So, my name is Amanda and I teach art and lettering tutorials on YouTube and also on my own website where there are full-length, super in-depth courses, and that's at amandaarneill.com. Now, Black Friday is coming up, and I know that you've probably already started to receive emails about it, and without having some sort of Christmas gift list, you are definitely going to go off list and you're going to spend well over your budget. So we are going to create a Christmas gift list together that will allow you to budget for stocking items and also for maybe gifts that are a single item or multiple items. And then as you go and buy these things, add them to your cart online, you can go in and color your coloring sheet in order to identify what you've purchased already and what you still need to get. And then in the end, you'll have a really beautiful page in your bullet journal. So if you're gonna use a bullet journal, flip to a new page in your bullet journal or grab a piece of paper. And I'm using a nice heavyweight paper. That way it just means that your bullet journal, that's right here. But that way it means that your piece of paper that you're using is more likely to be looked at again rather than some, regular piece of paper that will get recycled. Everything around here seems to get recycled. So on a new page, let's start off with our title at the top. Now, I'm going to be using a pencil to help us sketch out both our stockings and box shapes, but not the actual outside, it's just the inside bit to follow. And then just a regular, this is a zebra Sarasa pen. And I really like this one because my kids always steal my pens and they are both left-handed. And this one has really quick drying ink, which is also really nice when you're working on a bullet journal page because you don't have to worry about it smudging and ruining the whole page. So along the top, write yourself a title. I'm going to be writing Christmas gifts. And as you write it, if you joined me last week for the live, you can use a bullet or a brush pen if you want, or you can always go in and add in some of those thicks and thins, or you can simply leave it just as writing. Now, one thing that you're going to want to do is give yourself places for your stocking to hang. So for instance, off of the T, you can go in and create, watch out for that hole in the page, the crack there. Create a bit of a flourish so that you can hang some stockings off of here. And then we will continue our title. Once you make it across that crack in the page, it's a little bit easier. This flourish here, that's gonna kill me, but you know what? We'll cover that up by being part of a stocking. There's always a way to go in and sort of fix mistakes, even though I usually just pretend I don't see them. So we'll give our G also an area for some of our stockings to hook onto. And that can be tricky when you do that because you might run out of space for your next letter, especially if it's one that goes below the baseline. But if you bring it down far enough, then you'll have space still to fit your F in. Christmas gifts. It's so hard to write and talk at the same time. It's like patting your head and rubbing your belly. Okay, so right now we've started with a title up in the top here, and we are going to add on some stockings because in our family, we do a gift exchange. So we'll buy pick names and buy a gift for one person my parents or my brother and sister and significant others. And we do stockings. And for stockings, we actually get a stocking gift for every person. That way it's, a $10 item for every person rather than buying a big gift for every person. But keeping track of those stocking gifts is so important because I know that's one thing that I always overbuy on. So we're going to add in some stockings along the top here, hanging off of the middle title. And then around the space outside, that's where if we need more stocking space, we can put those other stockings in, or we can put in some presents around there. So let's start with the stockings. Now, the easiest way to draw a stocking is to give yourself an exterior, sorry if I'm hitting the camera here. The easiest way is to give yourself a J. And I want you to imagine that your J has been squashed down. So for instance, what I mean by that is that your J, rather than curving up like that, like a proper J, imagine that someone has stepped on your J's toe. So instead of that, your J is just going to be flat, getting its toe stepped on right here and squishing down. Drawing the first J here, now you can choose if you want your J's to be hanging straight so that they're going up and down, or if you want them to hang at an angle. And I'm gonna make mine hang at an angle because I feel like that's more of how a stocking would hang off of a mantle. So once you've drawn in your J, you're gonna use this to outline this shape. This is your basic stocking frame. So you have the top of the J, and that's going to be outlined for the fluffy part at the top of the stocking. And then you have the rest of your J here, and that is going to be the base of your stocking. So you're just very loosely tracing around it to give yourself a stocking shape. And when I was trying to do a stocking shape without going in and drawing that J first, they were all looking totally different. Some of them were long and skinny, and that's okay if that's what you wanted, but I wanted them to look a little bit more consistent. So once you've drawn in that pencil J, it gives you that guideline. So then we'll draw just a little curve for the heel and another one for the toe. And I find that drawing in a few little stitching marks like that just gives it a bit of whimsy, if you will. It gives it a little bit of a cute look and also helps to take away from the idea of every stocking looking the same. So now we'll just loop it on up here to our flourish there. So that one's a little bit close to the flourish. It didn't allow me to get a lot of looping space, but let's draw another stocking. And now, because I'm gonna have to draw quite a few stockings, I am gonna make them overlap a little bit. So that's another reason why this pencil J can be so helpful. And this one's going backwards. But having that pencil J drawn in, even though some of it's gonna go behind this other stocking, it allows you to have a sense of exactly where that line is still going to follow. So let's start off with the top, drawing in that fluffy upper stocking. And it's not the exact same, but it doesn't need to be. And then we're going to follow our J line. So I like to follow the back of the J first for this one, and then coming out of the bottom. And now I find if I was to go back up, I'm gonna miss and I'm gonna end up with a really skinny stocking. Whereas coming down off of this side and then going in to connect the toe allows me to get a stocking shape that still looks more like a stocking. Otherwise, it can go all sorts of crazy places. So I'm gonna draw in the heel and the toe again here. And let's draw in a few more of those little stitches. And I like to draw them in a slightly different location. And now we'll hook it off of our flourish. So here we've given ourselves a little bit more space. Draw a hook that covers the flourish on the top, and then imagine that it's going behind so you can't see that part of the hook, and then just bring in the end. This gives the illusion of it being hooked over the flourish and then moving behind. I'm quickly gonna fill in a few more, so I think I'll end up having enough space for 5 along the top here. Drawing in some J's, some of them can be a little bit shorter than others. But if you draw in a few of those J's right away, it allows you to have a sense of where your different stockings are going to sit. So I've drawn 3 more, and then just super quickly gonna go in, trace out the tops. I always find I have a hard time across this break point. If you have a lay flat journal, you don't have to worry about that quite so much, but I do not have one of those fancy pants journals. I just have a regular journal. I actually have 5 different brands of journals because I'm testing a whole bunch of them out right now so that I can figure out which one is actually going to work the best. And now I've taken that mistake and just made it part of that loop for the stocking. And you can also go in and put stitches on other places. You can do 2 sets of stitches. Don't feel like they ever need to be the exact same, and that's part of why drawing it by hand and not having an Excel spreadsheet is so nice, because it does allow you to have those little inconsistencies in your design. And again, that loop, it goes over and then comes in behind, and one more stocking will sit over here. This guy will be at a little bit more of an angle, and I'll draw the front and then go to the back to make sure that my stocking shape doesn't get out of control, and then drawing in the toe and the heel. Okay, so now that we have those steps in, what we want to do, oh, this guy needs to actually be hanging, so we'll just give him a little hook. What we want to do is go through and fill in some of the stockings, but before we do that, we're going to go and add a little bit of an outline to every one of these stockings, just to thicken up that outer line. Now, if you have a brush pen, this could be something that you go in and do with a brush pen, where you're just pushing a little bit and getting some variety in your pressure around the edge of your stocking. If you don't have a brush pen, you can absolutely still use your regular pen to go around and trace your shape. Now you'll notice that some places then there are spaces that need to be colored, and that's just like getting the variety and pressure that you would get with a brush pen. Now you don't want to do this on the insides of your shapes, just on the outside. It's also a good way to allow you, like this lower bit of the stocking here is not great. I feel like it bows down a little bit too much. So then instead of bringing that line on the outside, I can bring it a little bit more on the inside to help flatten out the bottom of that stocking. So this is sort of another trick for allowing you to go in and fix up some of your mistakes. Also, having this thicker line on the outside, it makes your stockings pop, but it also gives definition to the outside of your shape versus the inner detail lines of your shape. Those ones are going to stay a little bit lighter. Now, for the sake of time, because I do typically just do this with my regular pen when I'm drawing, but for the sake of time, I'm going to use my brush pen and finish off these last 2, just so that you're not just watching me color. And one thing I like to do is try to curve in those corners so that they're not quite as sharp. So here it's a sharp corner, and I like to get a bit of a curve on that outer line. And just remember to vary your pressure so that some of your lines are thicker than others to give that hand-drawn look. And again, we'll curve in those little corners there. Go all the way around your shape. There we go. So we've added those darker lines on the outside, and already you can see that, oh my goodness, there's so much wind. If you hear that background noise, it's just a very blustery day here. But if you hear, or if you can see now that these are all popping. Now, once it's dry, you can go in and start to erase those J's. I always like to give it a bit of time to dry, because otherwise you can smudge it depending on which pen you used. And because I use both of those pens, I don't quite trust that all the ink is dry. I know that the zebra pen, it dries pretty quickly, but better safe than sorry. So once you've erased that, you can start to fill in some of your names and details on your stocking. So for instance, my brother, Cam, because his real name's Cameron, but that's a lot to fit in that space. He has asked for razors. Very exciting, but practical, so I like that. So writing in your stocking, then that's the area that you will color when you have purchased that. And then when you're fully done the person, so that stocking item would be fully done, then you can color in the whole thing. But for instance, let's say I'm also going to buy for my husband, if he's lucky. Sometimes we do Christmas gifts and sometimes we don't. But for him, I would get a few items. So if you're going to do a few items, then you can add stripes to your design. So let's give him, he can get a whopping 3 things. He really likes that orange chocolate. So I'll get him some orange chocolate. And what else does he like? Good question. Our kids, so I'll put one of our children in his stocking. I had to, yeah, he probably wants razors too. And he always likes a new pair of socks. Now, socks can fit down here, but if you wanted to give yourself a few more items, you could then also put another piece up here. So as you finish it, like I went and found the orange chocolate yesterday, as you finish it, you can color in that little section of the stocking. Now, typically I like to color in before I put lettering into my bullet journal, just because you can get smearing of your ink. But if you color around the outside and then go in and just sort of dab on the letters, usually it's not too bad. Or if the ink's had a chance to sit and dry for a day or two because you're not doing your shopping just yet, you're just setting up, then usually it's not a problem. All right, so around this, let's draw in some presents. And the presents, either if you have a bullet journal especially, you can see all your straight lines, so you can keep them all straight if you want, or you can go in and put them at an angle. But that can be a little bit tricky with the straight lines. So we're gonna use the letter T to draw in our presents. So as long as you have a T where that's essentially just a perpendicular line, so one going horizontally at an angle and the other one going vertically at an angle, but that they are perfectly square to one another, then you have the basis for your present, and you don't have to worry about getting it perfectly straight on your page. All right, we're gonna draw 3 styles of presents. And with those 3 styles, we're going to do 3 different types of ribbons. And now ribbons for me have always been something that I have dreaded a little bit. But if we break it down into steps, it can be really easy. So our first step is to draw a little dome shape right in that center area. Now, once you've drawn your dome, first let's do a very simple sort of style. So we're gonna do 2 little loops off of either side. It's like you're drawing a bumblebee with really teeny tiny wings off each side. And once you have those bumblebee wings, now you're gonna go in and you're gonna draw a heart shape around. 1 loop and 2. And on the other side, a heart shape and 2. And just like that, with a curvy shape, with a tiny squash bumblebee and 2 hearts, you have a really cute bow. So let's draw the rest of our present. Now, some of the presents that we're gonna draw are just gonna be squares, and then some of them are going to have lids. So let's give this one a lid. You can still see a little bit of the top line of the T. So go through and just outline that T a little bit. Just like we did with the stocking here, you want to trace that top portion of the T to give yourself the top of your box, and then follow that same line on either side of your box. So I'm just mimicking that exact T line right here on either side of the box to get your present box, and then close it off on the bottom. Now, rather than doing straight pointy ends, give yourself a little bit of a curve as you work your way over to the other side and a little bit of a curve there. And now I didn't match up perfectly, but remember that doesn't matter because we're gonna go through and do this outer shape again. So you'll be able to thicken up areas in such a way to make sure that it all balances out. And again, it's being drawn by hand. It's supposed to look a little bit imperfect. Now, because this one has a nice lid up here, that's a good place to write in the name of the person that you're going to buy a gift for. So let's write in for this one. Who else do I have to buy a gift for? Oh, you know what? I'll probably buy a gift for my child, which, you know, very big of me. So Lauren, even though she keeps thinking that it's Santa, I do not encourage that. I never once have told her that it's Santa that buys her gifts. And I actually tell her, oh, your mom loves buying you gifts, but she still doesn't put it all together. So one day she will. So for Lauren, she had wanted a poncho, which, you know, she likes to be comfortable. So I will be getting her a few things, which means that she will have a ribbon on her present. So she's going to get the poncho. Why not? She is going to be getting, she wants a Barbie in a wheelchair. She's really into playing hospital. And she wants what was the other thing? A doll stroller. Because she has a front carrier. But you know, sometimes those dolls just get really heavy. So those are the items that she's going to be getting. And then as they are purchased, you can color in that section. And once she's completely done, then the entire present gets colored in. Now let's do another style of bow because I want to show you 3 different styles. So again, we'll draw our T base and maybe let's make this one, do it right here and make it nice and tall and skinny to take up this extra space over here. So we'll do a tall T. And once you have that shape, we can start to draw in our ribbon. So for this ribbon, we always start with that same center point. That little, what is it? It almost looks like a tiny summer hat there. And then after you have drawn that line there, you're gonna go in and draw 2 sad lines. And now this sort of reminds me of the top of a daisy. You know, you'd have all your little petals happening off the bottom there. But instead of that, we are going to do a line coming out of the top portion here that has an indent and comes around. So it's very similar to our heart, but instead of having a point to the heart, you're just having a gentle curve in. It's like you start to draw a heart and then, oh no, and run away from it and head in towards the bottom. And then we'll just add some little fold lines off the top there. So with this one, let's not do a lid, but instead let's give this one a tag so that we can still write the recipient's name on there. So for your tag, simply draw a little line coming down, and then off of that line, you're going to draw a triangle. And off of that triangle, you're just going to draw 2 straight lines and then close it with a line at the bottom. And there's your little tag. And the reason that we did the tag first was because if you draw the box, and especially in this case, with it being a tall, skinny one, your tag might need to go off and you'll end up with a line through your tag, which we don't want. So let's draw our box in, and you're just going to draw a line that mimics this T line, but out to the side. And if you were using your bullet journal, you can always use your dots for this. If you kept them straight, or if you kept this present straight on your bullet journal page. And again, for the bottom, give it a slight curve as you move over to that next side. So we have a tall, skinny present here, and this one will be for my mom. And she wants what does she want? Oh, an addition to her willow tree nativity set. It's so beautiful. Lauren, I have the whole set, and Lauren accidentally yesterday dropped 3 of my figures on the floor, and they have shattered. One of them completely shattered. One of them, I have put so much glue on it. It'll be amazing if it ever breaks. Probably if it falls, it'll just bounce because there's so much glue on it. But those willow tree things, you know, they're not cheap, so that's all she's getting. Thanks for giving me life. You get one figurine, but that's okay. And as we go through and do these, you can also draw your darker lines around the outside, but especially for these presents, there is a darker line you're going to want to do on the inside as well. It's hard I always like to turn my book at a bit of an angle, and you can probably do that with your book, but then it will be hard for you to see things. So I'm trying not to do that. So going around this outer line one more time, the reason that you thicken up this line usually is to separate your shapes from your details. And here we have a bow on the top of the gift, which is different than a detail line, which is what these ones on the inside would be. So to just help to make that bow pop, I do a skinnier sort of line around it, not quite as thick, and you can even do that to your tag as well, where you thicken it up just a little bit, but not quite as much perhaps as what the outside of your present would get. And so once that is bought, then it can be colored in. So we have one more bow style to do, and it's very, very similar to this one, except we are going to embellish the top part of the bow. So let's draw our next T, and I'm going to draw it facing this way instead so that it looks like the presents are falling on the page. We're going to follow many of these same steps up here. So first draw your half moon, and then your two little bumblebee wings. And now we're going to make the top part of the heart larger. So really bump that one up, and then just a little flare on the bottom. So it almost looks like a nice cozy winter mitten, actually. Big bump on the top with a little thumb space. And they're not perfectly even, but again, don't be so hard on yourself that that is what you're focusing on. Once your whole page is full of your presents, it's going to look absolutely beautiful. So for this one, let's just make it a nice big fat square. And you don't want to have it coming straight down off of your ribbon all the time. Instead, let's give ourselves a little bit of a corner curve up at the top and a little bit on this side, and then bring the present down. And again, we're following this line here. It's not completely oh, my hand really bumped in there. That's okay. We'll just change the shape of it a little bit so it goes in a bit at the bottom. And remember, we get to redraw around the outside of the shape. So that mistake or little bump that my hand had won't even be seen. So you don't have to worry so much. There's always a way to fix it. That's always what I tell my kids. You dropped my willow tree figurine. Sure, one of them shattered. I'll fix it by buying a new one. But the other one will just be covered in hot glue. You actually can't tell too badly. I swear by the time that they're grown up, I'm going to have to rebuy the entire set. I have one goat that has one horn, one ear, and only 3 legs, but that's okay. So retracing the bottom part of that ribbon as well, because it is not a detail, but it's its own little figure. And then we'll put a tag coming off of this one for the name. So again, we're doing a triangle, 2 straight lines, and if this is a longer name, continue that tag down so that you have enough space to write, and then finish it off on the bottom there. So if I had a name like Cameron to actually write there, there's a little bit more space. All right, I'll just quickly turn this so that I can write a name. So I'd like to get a gift for the teachers, my kids' teachers, because they are doing an absolutely phenomenal job, especially this year. You wouldn't even notice that it's a much harder year for them. The kids have no idea, which is amazing. They are absolutely wonderful. Give that another little bit of space. And then, okay, I haven't decided what I'm gonna buy for her yet, but at least this way, there's a placeholder so that I know that I want to buy her something. I won't forget to get her something. I just need to figure out what it is that she's going to be getting. And that's what you can do if you don't know exactly what you're going to be getting for someone yet. You can always create a present for them, but leave it blank until maybe that perfect thing catches your eye. So you'll notice that in between these presents, there is extra space. And one simple way to fill that in is by drawing some little stars. So an easy way to draw your stars is to give yourself an X or a cross, so a sideways X, and then just go in and connect those points with a simple curve. And that fills in that space and gives it a little something special. So again, draw your cross, and they can be different sizes. So this one I'm doing a little bit bigger because there's a bit more space. And then draw in a curve to go from corner to corner. Another embellishment that you can do too are just drawing a few little dots. And that helps to give some detail, and drawing even some smaller little star shapes, so it's not quite as obvious that they have that curve. But doing something like that will allow you to really fill in the rest of your page and not make it feel like there are empty spaces. You also want to make sure that you're going around and tracing every single one of those presents so that they all pop off the page. All right, now as you go through and create your lists, I mean, you might not want to share what you're buying for everyone on social media, but if you do, I would love to see it, your finished product, and I'll definitely be sharing mine on my Instagram stories so that, well, I guess you can see what I'm buying for everyone, but also so that you can see that even though there are little imperfections in the page, once the whole thing is done, it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. And I started to color some of mine in on my test sheet that I was doing because my stockings were not looking great, so I had to practice those a few times. And it looks so cute once they start to get filled in. You can see that there are some items that I've already purchased, some that still need to be purchased, and then once it's all done, that whole present can be filled in. And another reason that I like doing this rather than doing maybe a list and then crossing off the items as you get them is then when it gets closer to Christmas and you can't remember what you bought for someone, you can go back to your list and make sure that, okay, for Alicia, these were the items, and check them off with your actual gifts as you go through and wrap them. So it's a really nice cheat to be able to ensure that you keep track of all the gifts, that you don't overbuy for anyone, which is so easy, and that you make sure that you don't miss a single person out. I'm gonna finish up this, and like I said, I will share it with my Instagram stories, and I can't wait to see your finished pages, so please tag me as you share them. I would love to be able to see what it is that you create, and we can even get some Christmas gift ideas off of people as well. All right, thank you so much for joining me for today's live tutorial. And another thing, if you don't want to hang it maybe off of your flourishes, is you can just give yourself a simple hanging rack to hang it off of. Have fun with your presents. You know, switch up your different bow types all throughout your page, switch up your angles, fill in your space with your stars and your dots, and have fun with this. Once you color it in, you're gonna have a great record, not only of what you're buying, you'll stop yourself from buying too much, you won't miss anyone, but next year, when you're thinking, oh, what did I get for that person last year? You will already have a record of what you bought, and you'll be able to get something maybe that complements it. Like I know some friends, I get them part of the Willow Tree collection every year. I get them something new, and it's a really nice way to keep track of what you've bought in the past so that you can get the perfect gift for this year as well. I hope that everyone has a wonderful and safe Christmas. And I can't wait to see you on Friday. On my YouTube channel, I will be posting a tutorial about making your very own home sweet home metallic iron-on dish towel. And this is probably going to be something that Mrs. I ends up getting with a few, maybe wrapped around a box of chocolates and a Starbucks card or something, but it's a nice way to have a gift to give to someone that you might not know exactly what to get them. But this will be live on my YouTube channel on Friday, day 2 of the 12 DIYs of Christmas. And I will see you again here for day 3 next Tuesday when we make some gift tags on Procreate. At least that's what I think it is. But either way, I will see you here.